Last name Welsh?
Yeah.
Okay. LinkedIn says you're not approved. Oh boy. Hold on a second.
I've never been on
I had a glitch. Let me just put it here. Edit. I'm going to remove LinkedIn and add my Dr. Aura. So it's going to be live now in Dr. Aura because something happened with LinkedIn now. And so we are going to, we are already live. Look at that. We're just here, fixing the glitches of this world. Hi, everyone. A happy, grateful Wednesday. Here I am, Dr. Aura Tovar, with another Get Naked show. And today I have a very lovely lady that I had the pleasure of meeting at a Vogue seminar in St. Louis. And now I have the pleasure of getting to know her even more here in the Get Naked show. So in Get Naked style, welcome to the show, Dr. Claire. And can you please be so kind to introduce yourself to our audience?
Certainly. It's a pleasure to be with you, Dr. Aura. I love your show, and it's a pleasure to share my story. I'm Dr. Claire Welsh. I'm a graduate of Life University. I've been in practice go Life. I've been in practice over 30 years. I currently serve on the International Chiropractors Association board. After serving as the representative assembly person from Georgia for many years, I was asked to serve as Southern Region Director, and now with some, changes in the ICA, I'm a full-fledged director for the ICA. So it's kind of exciting to do that. My story, well, obviously, if I've been a chiropractor 30 years, my story started a long time ago. But my mission right now is to spread chiropractic throughout the world. That's what it's about for me.
Woo! Well, we love that. We love that kind of mission, and having a superstar 30 years in practice and here on the show, we want to spread it for sure. I know my audience loves chiropractic and wants to spread chiropractic throughout the world. And so I want to hear a little bit because in the Get Naked show, we like to go a little bit back before we go forward. So can you be so kind to share a little bit of your story, how you came about chiropractic, how it has changed your life to the point that now you just want to spread it all over the world? Because I agree with you in there. I think we need it. But yes, share away.
Well, it started as the typical back pain story. One day I was in the gym working out, and at the end of the class, they stopped early and they had a speaker come in. And some of the people kind of zipped out of class, and I just, wasn't raised that way. That'd be rude. It's only 5-10 minutes. So I listened, and it was a chiropractor from Atlanta area. And he was speaking about chiropractic and what it was all about. And I listened and learned and thought, And at the end of it, he walked up to me, and we're all getting up with our gym bags and running out the door. And he handed me his card, and he said, I can see you have a scoliosis. I know I can help you. When you're ready, here's my card. And he gave me his card, and I thought, yeah, and dropped it in my gym bag. Time flies by, and a while later, sure enough, I was in severe pain. Meanwhile, my husband, who was a VP for a Fortune 500 company, was traveling like crazy. I had 3 kids in 3 different schools and 3 carpools that I juggled. And I was in so much pain, low back pain, that I didn't know how I was going to do it. And my husband said, well, just go to the doctor and get some drugs. And I said, I won't be able to drive if I'm on medication. That'd be ridiculous. And I said, I heard this chiropractor speak a while back. Let me see if I still have his card. So I went through my gym bag and scurried through the sneakers and all that, and sure enough, there was a card. And I called him, and I went in and went through the whole process, the consultation, the examination, a health talk, first adjustment, second adjustment, reported findings. And 3rd or 4th day, I was feeling much better. And I thought, I'm better. But I went in because he was closed in the morning that day, only open in the afternoon. And I knew I wouldn't be able to reach him to cancel the appointment. And when I went in, he got what I call hopping mad. He literally hopped in front of me. He had the x-rays up, and he said, you think this is better? You think And he pointed to the scoliosis. Is better in 3 visits? And I was like, I guess not. And he said, I tell you what, let's continue your care and see where we go from here. And let's do a reevaluation and he told me how many visits, and we'll determine then where you're at and what the next step will be. And I'm like, okay. And I said, but there's just one problem. We're leaving this weekend for vacation. He says, where are you going? And I said, Disney World. And he just kind of looked at me and was like, yeah, I don't think so. There's no way you'll be able to handle walking around and rides and things like that. And I'm like, okay, well, what? He says, you're going to have to change your plans. Now, meanwhile, he had me on daily visits. So I'm like, well, I'm missing these appointments for a week. So I called around and I found a cruise, and we changed our plans and we went on a cruise instead. 1, 2, 3, last minute out of probably Miami or Fort Lauderdale. And we headed on a cruise, and I did fine. And when I got back, I came back in and continued my care. And somewhere along the way, every time I'd ask a question, he'd hand me a book or a pamphlet or something to read. And one time he handed me a book that was probably about that thick. And a day or two later, he said, well, you finished the book yet? And I'm like, I have 3 kids. I'm reading it. It's on my night table, but I haven't finished the whole book. And he says, And time went on, and I started finding that not only did my back get better, but my allergies for all intents and purposes disappeared. I had colitis, which I hadn't even mentioned to him, and I had no bouts, no issues. Thing after thing after thing improved. And somewhere along that time frame, my youngest son, who was like 5 or so, had another ear infection. And he was at the point where the pediatricians had said, 1 more ear infection and we're going to have to do surgery. And I brought him in with me with a high fever, and he wasn't even swallowing or anything. And Dr. Mark adjusted him. And on the way home, Kevin lifted his head and said, okay, now I'll take that Slurpee, because I had promised him, if you'll just drink a Slurpee, I'll get you anything. So I saw one after another. And then the next thing was my daughter was diagnosed with a scoliosis and the scoliosis screening. So I brought her into Dr. Mark and we started care, and just one after another after another. And it was like, I found I was turning to chiropractic for everything, and it worked, as it always does. And one day, Dr. Mark said to me, have you ever thought about becoming a chiropractor? And I was like, well, I have 3 kids and I have a very successful husband, and we travel, we move every couple of years, I just don't see, and I went, maybe. So I was a bio major, had multiple minors, but I had done my thesis on the effects of vitamin C on bacterial growth. So it was kind of like chiropractic was pulling my whole background together, my interest in yoga and my nutrition interest and biology and health and doing things the natural way for my children. I mean, I was that mom who made my own granola before granola was even cool. And so before you know it, a couple of months later, I was enrolled at Life University and zipping through school. For me, I grew up in the Bronx. We were a nice middle-class family. I had a good life. I was the oldest of 7 children. That meant I was always a caregiver for those under me, all my younger siblings. And chiropractic was an answer. It was pulling everything of who I was, everything I believed in. It pulled it all together, and it allowed me an opportunity to serve others. And before you know it, that's what happened.
Woo! I love it. I love it how sometimes just the universe just arranges it all, so we end up right where we need to be. And thank you, Dr. Mark, for then being such a great influence on your life and just never giving up, because sometimes we as chiropractors, I've been in practice for 23 years too, as well. I can't believe it's been this long. And sometimes we say, you know what, or this patient's not going to get it or something. And And I feel it's about never giving up and giving your best forward, because you just never know, indeed, like BJ said, what word, what action, what you can say today will affect the lives of so many tomorrow. And I just butchered that. But yes, it's amazing, right? Because now you're here and we're having this chat, and
Well,
I'm sure you have
you
had plenty of people you have.
I believe chiropractic found me when I dropped that card. I mean, out of that whole class, for him to walk up to me and hand me the card.
Yep.
And I dropped it in the gym bag. And who would ever think that months later it would be there when I needed it? I mean, so, and then we went from there. I finished school in less than 3 years. So I graduated in December 88, but I was with multiple classes because I just zipped through, even though I had 3 kids to take care of and a husband who traveled. I worked for some very dear friends right after I graduated. And back then, you didn't get your license the minute you graduated. There was no such thing as national boards so that you could go practice immediately. And we had a couple of upsets in our lives. I was a new graduate, not licensed. We were down at my husband's grandmother's funeral, and I got a phone call that a family member was young, was near death. He had attempted to take his own life and didn't see hope. And I looked at Steve and the kids and I said, I have to go. I mean, we're in Florida on one coast and the family members on the other coast, just a short flight away. I'm supposed to be there. And I just jumped on a plane and got in a taxi and got to the hospital. And we all sat there. We sat there outside the room, all huddled, holding hands, praying, and making those deals you make with God. If only you do this, then I'll do this. The ones that people do when they're in a terrible, terrible situation. The doctors came out and they told us that although he had not broken his neck, he had crushed the windpipe, and that there was no brain activity. And having gone to chiropractic school and taken all those neurology classes, I knew what that meant. And they said, we have no response from deep pain. And I knew what that meant. And we're getting no response. And we'll come back and speak to you in the morning. But in the meantime, we're going to allow each family member time to go in and spend time with him. And I knew what that meant. That meant time to go in and say your goodbyes. And when it was my time, I went in and he was in the bed, angled up. They had done the tracheotomy. There were tubes attached everywhere. There was a machine over on the side beeping. They had a giant floodlight down on him. And I just looked in and I went, seriously? What were you thinking? And I looked up and I said, okay, God, now what? And this is something that I don't usually share, but we're getting naked. But I heard an answer. I swear I heard an answer. And God said, you know what you need to do. You know what you went to school for. And I went, okay, I'm not licensed. I'm a new graduate. I don't have the experience. All those thoughts were there, but then all those thoughts were gone. They were all there, but they were all gone immediately. And I didn't have an x-ray. I didn't have anything. I only had the word, he had not broken his neck. And I went, okay. And I went up and I adjusted his atlas. Because what else can you do? Exactly. And I just went, okay, now what? And the answer was, you're done. And I walked out. And the rest of the family was surprised that I was in and out so quickly. They all spent their time and, I don't know, cried and prayed and whatever. And of course I prayed. And the next morning, the team walks in and does all their stuff and they're running in and out of the doors and, bringing machines in and bringing machines out. And finally, a nurse or someone comes up to us and says, we have results, we have brain activity. We don't know what happened. This never happens. Typically, we repeat the test 3 times and then we unplug. We talk to the family about unplugging the patient. And we had already run 3 tests. We were just waiting till morning. We don't know. We've never seen this. And I mean, doctors are running in and out, and they're going to show everybody this miracle. And my family just looked around and they said, well, wow. And I said, our prayers were answered. And at that time, our family didn't have the money for private care or a private room or anything like that. So we took turns. And I have 2 sisters who are nurses. And I, as a doctor, graduate in chiropractic, and we just took turns being with him 24/7 until they moved him to another facility. And that's the story. And it was like, wow. And you walk away and you go back home. And fortunately, the doctors who I was working for as an exam doctor were very, very good about letting me take my days to fly back down to Florida and spend there and then fly back and work. And that's what I did. I mean, they were just wonderful. And I was like, that was my mission. That was my purpose. I mean, I thought it was, because when you're in school, you're like, what is your mission? And my mission is to help and serve people and just help everybody, as many people as I possibly can. And as one of my mentors, Dr. Armin Rossi, would always say, as many people as divinely possible. And I'd be like, yes, that's my mission. But it was like, wow, this is my personal mission. I was supposed to adjust this person. He was supposed to continue living. He has something else to do in life. And wow, I was in the right place at the right time. I mean, I was there in less than an hour. And so I thought that was it. And I went about my business. And when the license came, their practice did not have room for me as a full-time doctor. I'd still have to serve as an exam doctor and only adjust certain hours. And I just went, I didn't go to school for that. And I went home and literally pretty much sat in bed for 3 days and cried. I mean, yes, I got up and fed my children and did what I had to do, because that's what we do, right, women? Right, ladies? Do what you have to do.
Right.
But pretty much I just sat around and cried. And on the 3rd or 4th day, I guess it was the 4th morning, as my husband leaned over to give me a kiss goodbye early in the morning, he said, it's time for you to get up and go find your own practice. And I went, oh, I don't want to do that. And he said, well, it's time for you to get up and get moving. And I thought, I am not going through that interview process again to find an associate position. And I just can't do that. I mean, I've already done that. And I watched my father, who owned his own business, and he worked 7 days a week, long hours, 7 in the morning till 9 at night, 3 days a week, and 7 in the morning till 6:30 at night, the other 3 days, and half a day on Sunday, which meant he only worked till 3 o'clock. So I watched that and I said, oh, I do not want my own business. But I didn't see an option. It was like an opportunity. I am so grateful that my dear friends led me and let me go. That's basically what they did by saying, well, we don't have enough hours for you to practice full time. Go find your way. I'm grateful because it led me, to where I was, and I opened Caremore Chiropractic Center, and that was like the birth of another baby, and we went from there.
It's so beautiful. And thank you for those people watching and commenting. We love and appreciate you. If you like what you're hearing, definitely share it our way. And it is a wonderful story, extremely inspirational. And in the Get Naked series and Get Naked podcast, we always talk about how the things that are sometimes so hard for us are our biggest blessings. So I love that you share that story. And I love that you mentioned that those doctors letting you go or not having the space to fit you in as a full-time doctor was your biggest blessing. You had to go through that little 3 days of mourning or whatever it is in order to gather the strength to push forward. So this is for all the listeners out there, that if you're going through something rough, whether it is is a relationship ending, a job ending, a loss of any kind, there is that little morning is a place where you cleanse in order for you to propel forward where you are most needed and where your purpose is most fulfilled. So don't get yourself down and know that there is hope. And those times that we feel the darkest are our biggest blessings in the end. And I love that story that you share because it fulfills exactly what we're trying to talk about here. And yes, thank you so much. I want to talk to you about, because you just mentioned you want to take chiropractic through the whole world, and how you have used the setbacks that you have been given to bless others and bless your life and your beautiful 3 children, which are not babies anymore, I'm sure. They're not. And how is it that you find, is there any rituals, anything that you do that keeps you on purpose, that keeps you going no matter what comes your way? I love to give those kind of tips as an inspiration to other women, and yes, men too. We love and appreciate you as well. But any women that sometimes feels that it's too much, right? Having a family and having kids and having your own business and feels down by whatever, and things that they cannot keep going. What keeps you on purpose, Claire?
Wow, that's a tough one because with times changing, I can't say, oh, go to a seminar or go to this. But for me, in the early years, I went regularly to DE. I connected in my first year in practice with Dr. Fred Schofield, and I went there every single month. Right now, I go back to Life University. I go to Life Vision quarterly. I participate in Life Leadership Weekend, where we get to bring in prospective students and share our stories with them and share the beauty of chiropractic with them. But I think if I have to really dig deep and find it, I'd say the biggest thing is to be open and to have, what we used to call have your antenna up, because opportunities pop up. I was just at Life Vision 2 weeks ago, and one of the new doctors was saying how she hadn't opened her practice because of COVID and this and that and everything, and how she couldn't do the things she wanted to do, which were fairs and events in the town she chose. So she was basically adjusting out of her home or going to other people. And yes, she was, it is a practice, but it wasn't what her dream was. And I thought about it and I kind of went about my business. And then I went back and sought her out again. And I said, I have to tell you something because I feel obligated to share this. You can have a set idea and be working towards it, and that's admirable. That's fabulous. But if you are not open to the opportunities around you, then you may be missing the boat. Because I didn't get into chiropractic for what I ended up doing. I had no intention of ever having my own practice, and right now we have an associate, my daughter's, in the practice, and we have another associate, and that's where she needs to be. I mean, that's perfect for her. So not everyone is designed to run out and start a practice, and many women and men, are just fine, just adjusting. Because as I always say to them, well, what's your biggest challenge in practice? And I say, well, one of the biggest challenges is you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. I mean, the copy machine may break down, or the lock on our door got stuck and the bill was $900 to change a lock. I was like, seriously? Well, yeah, but they also did the back door while they were at it. And I'm like sitting there going, you've got to be kidding. So, if you own a practice, you never know what's being taken out of your paycheck. But that being said, I told this young lady, this young doctor or fledgling chiropractor, how important it was to be open to opportunities. And I said, every place you go is your opportunity to speak about chiropractic. I said, it may not be a fair. That may be what you planned, a year before you graduated, but in these times, that's not going to happen. So when you're in line at Starbucks, when you're, in the grocery store, when you have an opportunity to speak to that person next to you. You're obligated. That's your responsibility, not only your opportunity. And you can grow from there, you know. And so I think my ritual is to always be aware, because things are going to pop up. You know, I told somebody just last night that I believe that if you hear something, you hear it. When you hear it the second time, your antenna better be up, because if you hear it a third time, it's definitely a message from God. You know, you better be listening and you better act on it, because that's what you're meant to do. I want to go on a little more, if you give me an opportunity to talk about practice. So when I opened, so I thought, remember I said that was my mission, taking care of that family member who had almost died, who is now, I feel so wonderful, because he was given his children to raise for several years. He had full custody before they got to their teen years, and then got to choose to go with their mom. And I watched that person totally change. It is, you know how people always say, oh, a leopard doesn't lose its spots and the zebra's stripes and all that stuff. Yeah. And I always say, no, people do change if they choose to. Right, if they want to. And I watched this person become a totally different person, totally. And it's one of the people who I probably don't tell them enough that I admire most because of that. But anyway, I was in practice, and I was in practice a year. And as I said, you know, Dr. Steve was an engineer for a Fortune 500 company. He was vice president in marketing and engineering. And he traveled all over. I mean, all over. In fact, we even had a stint where we lived in Egypt for several months on a special assignment. And I was in practice almost a year, and I got that call, and I know your daughter just left for college. And I almost hate to tell this story, because it's gonna have you shedding a tear. But my twins left for college. My daughter went to the Air Force Academy, so she left immediately after high school. That was one of the hardest things in life, is signing the papers, giving the Air Force control of her life. I still choke up at that one. And then 2 months later, my son Stephen left for college. And a couple of months after that, I get that dreaded phone call. You know the one, you know, and they pulled me away from seeing patients, and it was a hospital. And they wanted to know when my son's last DPT shot was, or whatever, tetanus shot they wanted. And I went through my whole dissertation on my opinion on vaccines and freedom of choice, et cetera. And they said, they were like, well, ma'am, and it was a male nurse, I have to tell you, your son's in radiology right now, and they're doing an MRI, and he was hit by a car. Oh, God. And we already have the initial results, and we've already called in the surgeons, and he's not even rolled out of the testing yet, but he will be having surgery. And I said, oh, you're calling for permission? They said, oh, no. Oh, no, not at all. First of all, he's over 18, but secondly, this is life-threatening. We don't need your permission. And I was like, you need to get here. He's hemorrhaging internally. The results are already that he has a collapsed lung and a fracture of L5, but that's just a minor little detail. And his liver is lacerated, and you need to get here. So, I mean, I'm in the middle of seeing patients. So I walk out to the CA, less CAs, let me tell you. And I told her what to do. And I asked her, I said, tell every patient what's going on immediately. Tell them I don't want to chit chat or talk. I'm totally focused on adjusting them, but I'm asking them that while they're waiting for their adjustment and after, to say a prayer for my son, and that we will be rescheduling all appointments over the next few days. And shortly thereafter, Steve walked in the door, and we were, because of his position with the telephone industry, we were one of the first people on earth to have a cell phone. So, you know, it was a great big box thing that fit in the front of the car, but called him ahead and told him, and he ran in. And I said, my CA was already getting the tickets for us to fly down to Florida. and he was at FSU, and no, he was at FIT, and in Melbourne. And I sent my husband home, and I said, pick up my makeup case, my white pants, my white sweater, my white sneakers, a polo. I think I had a light pink polo. My makeup case is always packed. And I said, a couple pairs of undies and, and he just looked at me and I said, and be back here in 10 minutes or whatever. And we walked out and went straight to the airport. And we got there expecting to be on the next flight. And because of the storms in the Northeast, we were in Atlanta at the time, all flights were delayed. And the Atlanta airport was packed. There were people sleeping on the floor and, and I was, we have to get there. We have to get there. And I'm wringing my hands and I'm like, maybe we should have driven, but that would have taken 10 hours, but who knows how long it's going to take for this. And, and finally Steve said, you know what? I belong to the Delta Club because he traveled so much. Let's go in and just sit down and breathe. And as we're walking into the Delta Club, Dr. James Sigafus is walking out.
Wow.
And I went, Dr. Sigafus. And I just blurted out what was going on, the whole story. And I said, who do we know in the Melbourne area who can go and adjust my son? And he looked at me and he poked his finger and he said, you, there's no one better than you. You're his mother. And he went like this and totally dismissed me and walked away. And I was like, what? Now, hindsight, I can look back and I hear his words and I remember him telling the story of his son getting in the ambulance and him not adjusting him and wishing he had. And I remember those stories, but at that moment, I was just like, I need someone better. It's my son. Yes. Well, we finally got there. We weren't sitting next to each other, my husband and I was sitting next to this little old lady. And of course I was crying and sniffling and, and she patted me on the leg. Dearie, what's wrong? So I told her, because I'm one of those, I believe the more people who know, the more positive energy will go towards something and the more prayers I can get. And whether they pray my way or not, it doesn't matter. So I told her this story. She says, oh, you're really lucky. The doctors in Florida practice on all us old people. So they have lots of practice. You're probably, which I thought was, now I look back and I gotta laugh. So you're getting a doctor who's probably practiced this surgery a million times. I'm like, okay. We got there and it was late at night. And the hospital's dark and, very subdued as they turn the lights down. And we run in, we run to the door of the wing where it is. And there's this college kid standing there. And he says, are you Steve's parents? And I said, yes. And he blurted out this paragraph telling how many liters of blood he had lost and how many this and how many that. And I mean, facts and figures that I have no idea how he memorized it, and telling me what stage he was in and that they were monitoring him. They hadn't moved him to a room yet and blah, blah, blah. And then he just huffed and he said, I never left. I stood outside wherever he was because I knew that's what you would want. I didn't even know this kid. And I said, thank you, and hugged him, and he left. And we, finally they had Stephen in a room, our son. And, I got the x-rays. And so now you ask, why all the white clothes did you pack? Because if you're in white, you can go anywhere in a hospital. And I was down in radiology looking at x-rays, and I was here and they let me go everywhere. I mean, this is back 30 plus years ago, okay? This is back a while. And, no chiropractors had privileges and we were not respected as doctors. And so this was a big step, and they let me do everything. And Stephen was cognizant and talking and, but his blood count kept going down, and they kept picking a number and saying, if it goes below this, we're going to have to do a transfusion. But we don't want to do a transfusion because back then they knew about AIDS. They could test for it if you had it, but they had not perfected testing blood. So they didn't know if they'd be giving him. Remember back then they had people who they gave AIDS to by mistake because they didn't know. And then his blood count would drop. And his lungs still hadn't inflated. And they had him on respiratory therapy. And, and I kept lightly adjusting his atlas because he was in so much pain. He had been on a bicycle on the sidewalk. A young girl had been making a U-turn, jumped the curb, hit him, threw him 20 feet through the air, and he landed on his back, lacerated his liver, hemorrhaging internally, collapsed lung, etc. And so this kept happening day after day, and they kept saying, we might have to give him a blood transfusion, and they kept lowering the number. And finally it was like, and the respiratory therapist came in and she walks out and she's shaking her head. And they said, well, we're going to have to go in and inflate his lung. That's an extra surgery. And we're going to have to give him a transfusion. And, and things were not looking good. And the regular nurse came in and she said, I used to live in Marietta, Georgia. I'm like, uh-huh. She says, I used to date a chiropractic student. She says, I'll guard the door. Go ahead and adjust him. And she goes like this across the door to guard the door and allow me to adjust him. And I said, well, actually, I have that. And she says, well, go for it. And I said, okay, Stephen, I know everything hurts, but I have to get in there and really adjust you, not just tap lightly. I just need to. And I adjusted him again, Atlas, and got the hugest audible you can imagine. And the nurse takes her stethoscope out of the pocket and listens. She says, I think I have breath sounds. She runs to the door and shouts down to the respiratory therapist who had just left, hey, come back. Respiratory therapist comes back. She says, I think I have breath sounds. And yes, I guess that last therapy session worked. And the nurse said, no, his mother's a chiropractor and she adjusted him. They called in, checked his blood count started going up, and things started looking. I went, again, this was my purpose. So first the first one, now the second one. I've done what I was supposed to do. I have this great practice. In 1 year, I was already I'd already hit 500, and, just moving along. And I said, I've created I've met my purpose and my mission and all that. And now I just have to keep going along, and I'm here for the ride kind of thing. And I have to say, time after time after time, other challenges come up. And that's what I want our listeners to hear. That's what I want, all our docs, ladies, guys, I don't care who you are. I want you, anyone, not even a doctor, to hear is that no matter what goes on in your life, rise to the occasion. They always say that God gives you all the tools you need. Yeah, you really have everything you need inside. Stop doubting. Don't question. Thank you, Dr. Sigafus, for telling me not to doubt myself. And sometimes that's what you're going to have. You're going to have someone remind you. Like I walked up to that young girl and I had to remind her, you've got the tools inside. It didn't need to be a screening at a fair. You've got what you need inside to build your practice. Stop wasting time and do it. Don't just sit there and use the pandemic as an excuse or something that happened in your personal life, as you always say, a relationship or a loss we can't use them as excuses. We need to use them as
I feel that stepping ladders into our true purpose. I love that story. And yes, and now I think I'm going to be praying for the next 4 hours nonstop just so my daughter can get to college. Oh, Claire. That's
totally fine. But right, is that not, and when do you always think? You always think you're going to get that call that your kid on a bicycle when they're 6 years old or something, not when they're 18, 19 in college.
I know that was so beautiful that you shared, because indeed miracles are everywhere, and staying aware that the miracles are there, and just going back to realizing that when we're put in those hard situations, it's when we're growing and when we're shining brightest, because we remove all this noise that tells us we're not good enough, that we cannot do it, that somebody else can do it better, and we get to it because we don't have a choice but to do it. It's just like, I love that, when you don't have a choice but to swim, you swim. And these hard situations, although may God save me from ever being in that position. So
never be in it. I agree.
But I know that what you did was exactly what you would have done for anyone, not only your son. And is trusting the process, is trusting that God's calling on our lives, because staying aware. I love what you said. Just stay aware and listen, because I feel He's always talking to us through people, through signals, through just like what you did to that girl in Live Vision. I love Live Vision. I need to get back there again. I've spoken there a couple of times. But what you did to her, you just had a calling that you needed to tell her. Maybe it's not going to look like you want. You're going to have to adapt, but it's the same purpose. It's just
Exactly.
you adapt, you change, you do little thing, and you keep shining bright, because situations like 2020 or 2021 for that matter have been put there for us to just scrape away the noise, scrape away the doubt, scrape away the fear, and just shine bright. Because if we're put in there, it's because we can handle it, right? God doesn't give us anything that we cannot handle. Exactly. I still love that. Oh, Claire, I need a hug. Honestly.
Virtual hug.
Virtual hug. And thank you to everybody that's been watching and been commenting. Indeed, it's an amazing story. Thank you, Dr. Claire. I mean, I know I want to get to talking a little bit about the ICA and the wonderful mission you guys have going on. So we're going to switch a little bit there. But this just know, ladies and gentlemen listening, chiropractic students or chiropractors or just lay people, whatever you're going through is for a purpose. And if you need help, please reach out to either one of us, because we are here to help. We've been doing mission. We were just talking about mission trips and how I've been doing mission trips with Car Mission for so long. And Dr. Claire is doing mission trips, and she was just adjusting on a mission yesterday.
Here in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico.
Exactly. Giving to the less fortunate and giving out of our abundance of a gift. You don't need to have money to give people. It's your intention, a prayer, your love, your kindness, and just putting your hands on people, even if you're not a chiropractor, still is helping the mission. But yes, you want to talk a little bit about your mission and the mission of the ICA with us?
Well, the ICA's big mission is to spread chiropractic throughout the world. The ICA is in, something like 52 countries throughout the world. But our purpose is to truly spread chiropractic throughout the world, subluxation based, and tell them what chiropractic is. We've been very fortunate the last few years, of course not this past year with 2020, but we have a connection in China, and we have had several trips to China where up to 12, 20 doctors have gone several times a year. And it's different from a true mission where you're out in the barrio helping, as we were yesterday here in Cabo, in Mexico. But we get on a big stage and you have a presentation on chiropractic and then adjust the people. And it's formal. It's amazing. Some of them are not as formal as others. I mean, Steve and I had one where they said, well, we want to show you the venue. And we're thinking, oh, yeah. No, come down early. We want to show you the venue. It was a theater in the round. It was set up for 900 people and it was standing room only. Imagine the impact you have when you've spoken to 1,000 people who then go out and tell 1,000 people, who tell 1,000 people, who tell 1,000 people. That's the bigger picture. Yes, we adjusted. We've had days where we've adjusted hundreds. When we did the India mission trip with Life West, we represented the ICA. We adjusted thousands a day, each of us. So spreading the word of chiropractic and helping the people, we have to do both. And that's what I get to do through the ICA. And I invite all your listeners to join the ICA. Just like you just said, you can give of your time, you can give of your money, you can give of your talents. And I want to encourage them, everyone, the ICA is for everybody. It's, I kind of say, if you were in the medical profession, you'd belong to the AMA. Why aren't our chiropractors all belonging? So look at our mission statement, look at what we're doing, and join. Because through having the numbers, we can accomplish so much more. When we go in the United States, when we go before the legislators and we're fighting for chiropractic equality, we have to say how many members we have. And if you take all the chiropractic organizations, we barely are like the tip of who we are. So we need people to step up and join in and let us do the work.
I love it. Is this the right website? I know I put it here, www.chiropractic.org.
You got it.
Yes. So please go join. Again, you don't need to be, if you love what you heard today, you love chiropractic, so go see a chiropractor if you haven't been. And if you're a chiropractic student, join ICA. If you're a chiropractor, join. I think there's indeed power in the numbers. And I think chiropractic couldn't have a better time right now than 2021, because health is in the minds of everybody, and the best way to stay healthy is to stay connected to your source and to live above down, inside out, and make sure there is no interference with the divine connection that just saved the life of your brother, of your son, and of so many people, because we see miracles constantly throughout our days in our chiropractic practices, in our mission trips. And we know that even one adjustment can change the life of somebody, and then it can change the life of everyone those people know. It's a ripple effect that can give and give and give and give in abundance, so we can go around the globe many, many times more. And I praise you, Dr. Claire, and your husband for doing what you guys do. Thank you so much for fighting for us. Thank you so much for being a voice. Thank you so much for serving out of your abundance. Your daughter is magnificent as well. I am blessed to be put on your path and blessed to have heard this interview here with you. I can't wait to give you a hug in person, because I need it after this interview. It's been wonderful. And thank you for sharing your heart and getting naked here with my Get Naked audience. If you haven't checked out the podcast, go check it out, rate it, and put it on your list. Let me know who else you would like to see on my Get Naked show, because I am here to get raw, real, and serve you with a message that might change your life. So before we go, Dr. Claire, any thoughts, any tips, any message you want to leave with on the Get Naked show?
Wow. Wow, that's a hard one. I think we all have the power inside us to change the world. And I think we limit ourselves. And I'm just going to challenge everyone not to limit themselves. I want to also tap in on that student one. Our student membership is phenomenal. At any point in your student career, you pay a total of $50, and then your next year after you graduate is free. All you have to do is spend a $10 fee and let us know your new address and everything else. So it's the pluses for being a member are amazing for all our members, but also for our students. So, but I just want to challenge everybody to be aware. COVID has offered us an opportunity. We have the COVID resource page on the ICA website, so go there and look at that. We have so many things going on. They did a fabulous job on a paper on immune function, and it is available on the website. Go look at it, print it out, have it available for your patients, because you really can make a difference. These are times that we really can make a difference, but we must be aware of the opportunities and look around and do it. Just jump in and do it. Thank you so much for everything you do, Dr. Tovar. You're phenomenal. I love you.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. And indeed, there's no little thing, there's no perfect time. The time is right now. And even if you can share with a family member, those people are hungry to know about health, wellness, and the immune system. And we got it as chiropractors. So, yes, go visit that website, check it out, join, print the papers, share with somebody. You don't need to wait till you're out of chiropractic school or till you have the perfect practice or till you have the perfect husband or till you have whatever. There is, the time is right now, and people are hungry for your heart and your intention. Thank you, Dr. Claire. This has been an amazing other Get Naked show with Dr. Auna, and I'm just so blessed to have had the chance to speak with you. For everyone else, thank you so much for commenting, for liking, for sharing. Keep posting questions if you have questions for Dr. Claire. I will tag her on this live so she can answer. If you have any questions for me, if we can be of service, please post it below and keep sharing away, for sharing is indeed caring. Love and appreciate you guys. Have a blessed, blessed, blessed Wednesday. Ciao.
Dakota.
Bye-bye.
Bye.